The orders made Keith William Bluey Truscott's blood boil. On September 7, 1942, the Australian ace and legendary commander of 76th Squadron was told to retreat. Japanese forces were just yards from overrunning Milne Bay airfield. There was nothing else to do. His squadron was ordered to withdraw, to live to fight another day, leaving the remaining defenders on the brink of collapse. Following orders would mean leaving behind the ground crew, who had kept his P-40 Kittyhawk in the air and abandoning the soldiers below, fighting and dying to hold that patch of ground. But as a former Australian football star, Bluey had always known you never desert your team. You win or lose together. There was no way he would leave them stranded in the field. Ignoring the insistent commands over the radio to turn back, he climbed into his P-40 Kittyhawk, leading his squadron into the sky. Below him, the defending forces were taking devastating fire from hidden Japanese snipers. Bluey pushed his Kittyhawk into a steep dive, strafing low over the treetops. His rounds tore through the foliage, sending enemy sharpshooters plummeting to the ground like overripe fruit. The scoreboard was not in his favor, but the game was far from over. Keith William Bluey Truscott was at the peak of his career as a celebrated Australian rules football star when he made a decision that shocked the nation. Leaving behind an unstoppable winning streak and a team poised for more victories, he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. It was the kind of choice that made headlines. One of Australia's brightest sports stars abandoning fame and fortune to join a war far from home. Fellow footballer Jack Dyer later commented on Truscott's Melbourne team, quote, "The best Melbourne ever had. They won 3 premierships in a row, and if not for the war, they'd have smashed Collingwood's record with 6. Truscott was a player of exceptional speed and instinct, known on the field as that red-headed bullet. However, his intense patriotism and commitment to fight alongside his countrymen led him to leave it all behind and take up a new life as a combat pilot. Truscott's training as a pilot began at No. 3 Elementary Flying Training School in Essendon, Victoria, where he quickly realized that the transition from the football field to the cockpit was tougher than he'd imagined. The precise technical demands of flying starkly contrasted to the raw, instinctive skills that made him a star on the field. He struggled, particularly with landings, often leveling out about 20 feet too high. There were times it seemed he might wash out, but his status as something of a public figure awarded him the leniency from his superiors. He decided to apply the same relentless drive that made him a champion to his military training. He spent long hours studying and practicing, determined to master the skills he needed to become a pilot. Over time, his sharp spatial awareness and split-second decision-making, honed on the football field, began to translate to the cockpit. His instructors noted his grit and his ability to keep calm under pressure, qualities that would soon prove essential in the dangerous skies over Europe and the Pacific. In 1941, newly commissioned pilot officer Truscott joined Squadron 452 RAAF in England. His aircraft, the Supermarine Spitfire, was one of the most lethal fighter planes of its time. Truscott and ace Clive Caldwell were already becoming one of the RAAF's most famous pilots. His fame was so significant in England that he became a fundraising icon, with the Marquess of Donegal rallying all red-haired countrymen to donate a Spitfire for Bluey, as Truscott was known for his redhead hair. The summer of 1941 was Truscott's baptism by fire. On August 25th, he flew over northern France, locked in a high-stakes dance with a Messerschmitt Bf 109, Germany's best fighter at the time. The German pilot was skilled, but Truscott was relentless. He banked hard, predicting every move until the Bf 109 slipped perfectly into his sights. Truscott squeezed the trigger. His guns roared to life, the Spitfire's 2 Hispano cannons spitting out bursts of 20mm rounds. The German fighter spiraled earthward, trailing black smoke. It was his first victory, the first of many. The Spitfire Mark V variant, which Truscott flew, was powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin 45 engine that delivered 1,470 horsepower, pushing the aircraft to a top speed of 369 miles per hour. Its sleek elliptical wings also gave it uncanny agility. This allowed the aircraft to go toe-to-toe against the state-of-the-art German 109 in the hands of a skilled pilot like Bluey. However, the danger was constant. Truscott's Spitfire was hit during one mission after downing several enemy aircraft. For the first time, he felt what it was like to be on the other side of the cannon. his warplane was peppered by enemy fire. Only by reacting quickly and performing deft evasion maneuvers did Truscott manage to stay in the air. Yet his Spitfire was far from intact. Its tail was shot off, fuel tanks ruptured, and fuel leaking away. He limped back toward England, only to run out of fuel over the channel. So close, yet so far away from safety, there was no option but to bail out and hope for the best. At 4,000 feet, he tried to jump into the void, just to become tangled in his cockpit as the aircraft plummeted toward the ground. He kept his head cool, just as he had done in the hardest football matches he'd played. Just 400 feet above the waves, he managed to break free. His chute barely had time to open before he slammed into the cold sea. He was weak and disoriented, but he survived to fight another day. However, not all of Truscott's moments were heroic in the traditional sense. In October 1941, during a heated skirmish over France, Truscott shot down 2 Messerschmitts. One German pilot parachuted out, and Truscott fired at him as he descended. Back at base, his friend Clive Wan called him a bastard for it. Truscott's response was blunt, quote, "He might have gone up tomorrow and shot you down." He had seen a German do the same to a fellow RAF pilot and had sworn to return the favor. As much as he was a team player, he understood war was not a game, and sometimes grim decisions had to be made. Over the next few months, Truscott's instinct sharpened. Between August and November, his squadron became the highest scoring in Britain. By the time Truscott left Europe, he had shot down 16 enemy aircraft, earning 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses. His uncanny awareness, the same that once helped him dodge defenders on the football field, now kept him alive in one of history's fiercest aerial battlegrounds. In early 1942, as Japanese forces surged southward through the Pacific, Truscott returned to defend his homeland. Assigned to command RAAF 76 Squadron, he faced a new challenge, mastering the Curtiss P-40 Kittyhawk. The P-40 was a different beast from his beloved Spitfire. Unlike the Spitfire's nimble agility and responsive controls, the American-made Kittyhawk was heavier and less agile at high altitudes, but made up for it with rugged construction and devastating firepower. Powered by an Allison V1710 engine, the P-40E delivered 1,150 horsepower, reaching speeds of 360 miles per hour at 15,000 feet. Its 650 caliber machine guns provided the kind of brute force needed for the harsh conditions of the Pacific. Truscott adapted quickly, using the P-40's strengths to his advantage. He developed new tactics, diving from above, hitting hard, and relying on the aircraft's sturdy frame to take punishment and keep fighting. The toughness of the P-40 became a weapon in itself, allowing Truscott to lead his squadron through brutal engagements. This strategy proved crucial during the Battle of Milne Bay. In August and September 1942, Japanese forces launched an amphibious landing, pushing dangerously close to Milne Bay airfield, 76 Squadron's base of operations. Japanese troops were advancing within yards of the airfield, and the Australian defenders were on the brink of being overrun. Truscott and his team provided relentless air support to the embattled infantry, unleashing over 196,000 rounds and wearing out 300 gun barrels in under a month. Despite their efforts, the defenders were barely holding on. On September 7, 1942, Truscott received unwelcome orders: withdraw. Milne Bay airfield was lost, and his squadron was to pull back, leaving the ground forces to their fate. Following orders would mean abandoning the ground crew who had kept his Kittyhawk in the air, and the soldiers who were still fighting to hold the line. It wasn't in Truscott's nature to leave anyone behind, not on the football field, and certainly not in battle. An official report noted that he was, quote, literally adored by the pilots and ground crew. His devil-may-care swagger, fiery red mop of hair, on which a Melbourne Cricket Club cap was usually perched, an infectious smile, just couldn't fail to inspire confidence in others. He wasn't about to betray that confidence now. Ignoring the insistent commands over the radio, Truscott climbed into his P-40 Kittyhawk, leading his squadron into the sky. Below, Australian forces were under devastating fire from hidden Japanese snipers. Truscott pushed his Kittyhawk into a steep dive, strafing low over the treetops. His rounds tore through the foliage, cutting down enemy snipers and buying precious time for the defenders on the ground. For hours, Truscott and his squadron flew mission after mission, their actions mentioned repeatedly in dispatches for their distinguished service. Against the odds, the tide began to turn. The battle that had seemed lost became an Australian victory, with Truscott's squadron described as, quote, the decisive factor. On March 28, 1943, as the sun glinted off the waters of Exmouth Gulf, a Catalina flying boat cut its path through the morning sky. Above, in the cockpit of his P-40 Kittyhawk, Squadron Leader Truscott banked into position for another practice run. It was supposed to be just another training day, another chance to keep his skills sharp. Earlier, the RAAF had agreed to launch surprise feint attacks on any U.S. Catalinas they encountered along the coast. At Truscott's request, the Americans agreed to keep their Catalinas well off the water during the exercise for safety reasons. But unusually fair weather played against them. The water's surface created a false horizon, and the Catalina was in a slow descent, preparing to land on the water. Truscott and his wingman Loudon couldn't tell. The sun was in their eyes, the glassy surface of the Gulf betraying their senses. They moved into position for a beam attack, believing they were safely high above the water. It wasn't until they were 800 yards away that Loudon realized the truth. The Catalina wasn't at altitude. It was descending, and they were dangerously low. He radioed Truscott, but it was too late. Truscott's Kittyhawk clipped the water at a shallow angle. He tried to pull up, but the aircraft stalled at 200 feet and plunged back into the sea. Truscott lost his life instantly. He was just 26 years old. Even in his final moments above Exmouth Gulf, he was pushing the limits, doing what he loved most. The RAAF named Truscott Airfield in his honor, and his Spitfire is displayed at the Australian War Memorial. The Melbourne Football Club's Bluey Truscott Memorial Trophy and a scholarship at Melbourne High School bear his name, celebrating his spirit of excellence. Streets across Australia are named after him, and his story was invoked by Prime Minister Kevin Rudd in a 2008 commemorative speech. Keith William Bluey Truscott lived by a simple creed: you never leave your team behind. From the football field to the cockpit, Truscott's journey was defined by loyalty to his teammates, comrades, and country.